What's up, guys? Welcome back. The Jen and Gelo show here. We're another video podcast, I guess, for you.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. The NBA season's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
It'll start this Tuesday. We're recording this on a Monday,
Yep.
and so Tuesday the 16th, the season will start. But the season won't start for our favorite team, the Pistons, until Wednesday. You actually wrote a story for the Lanthorn. Check that out.
I had the pleasure.
Check that out. Five key things the Pistons
That will define their season.
Yeah.
We can kind of just talk about what we think will happen with them. So obviously, the big change for the Pistons is that it comes at head coach with hiring former coach of the year just last season, Dwayne Casey. How do you see him just changing this team and hopefully getting them back to the playoffs?
Well, you've already seen it in the preseason. They're taking a lot more three-pointers, which is good. That's where the NBA is moving. Granted, they might not have the best three-point shooting team in the league, but the fact that you're able to get up, I mean, teams like Brooklyn last year were getting up 43 threes a game. They weren't winning many games, but they were at least they were in a lot of close games.
Yeah.
They were fun to watch, and the fact that you have better athletes and better players on the team, and you're getting up more threes. They're not taking as many mid-range shots. I think in the first two games they took 6 mid-range shots altogether.
Which is surprising.
Yeah, that's very surprising. Luke Kennard used a lot of that in his game, so it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, he shoots more threes this year. He shot 41.
You would hope so, since that's why you drafted him.
Yeah,
right?
41% from three last year, but you've already seen it there. I think he's going to try to do more small ball, which is going to be nice to see.
Which is weird when your best two players are big men.
Yeah, I think it's mainly going to be once we get into the season, you'll see some
Griffin
more,
at the center.
maybe some possessions with Griffin at the 5, Lure at the 5. I don't think we'll see a lot of Zaza in there at the 5. I would hope not, but it's a lot different than what we've seen in the SVG era, but it's better.
Yeah, and Dwayne Casey is different because SVG, he ran that system where it was like he liked to dribble handoffs, and he was still trying to reclaim that like magic glory with the 4 guys on the outside, and then the big man inside who's just getting boards and cleaning up the glass. And he kind of tried to build this team like that, but he also didn't.
Yeah.
It was really weird. It's a weird roster. It's one of the weirdest rosters in the league. So I'm hoping that Casey can take together all these spare parts and get them to work cohesively. That's the main thing, is to get lineups that work together, because they're weird pieces. Like, you need to find out a way that Reggie Jackson, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, Stanley Johnson, Luke Kennard, like these guys can all play together. And it's not an easy task, but he's a really good coach. And I think what he showed in Toronto is that he can kind of do anything with any guys. Like, his bench was really good. He made Fred VanVleet who he is. I mean, he made guys like Jakob Poeltl and Pascal Siakam, who knew who these guys were a few years ago, except for like really
under the radar guys in the draft that they end up picking up and they turn into something.
Exactly.
And you'd hope to see that from Kyrie Thomas and Bruce Brown this year.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. You hope Bruce Brown especially. It looks like he's going to be getting more minutes than Kyrie Thomas, you just hope that he can be good and be serviceable enough to be the backup point guard, because I know you personally don't like Ish Smith.
Yeah, Ish I don't think is the future as the backup point guard. I think Bruce Brown is. But the team definitely has a lot of unique pieces, like you said, and the 2 biggest pieces on the team are Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin. Andre Drummond last year, as you mentioned in your article, had a career year, 15 and 16. Yeah. Made an All-Star game appearance. Blake Griffin, not so much. Had injury trouble in LA and Detroit at the end of his run in Detroit. But I think that was more so we're not gonna ruin you for the next season. He still looked good in Detroit, Blake. He had 19, 6, and 6, I believe, last year.
Yeah, he had really solid stats.
Shot the 3 okay, more than you'd.
I think it was like mid-30s.
Yeah, mid-30s. I mean, if you have him at 35% on
you'll take that
on 3 or 4 threes a game. That's not bad. I mean, you'd like it to be better, but from a guy that's just getting this into his repertoire, it's not too bad. Do you see Drummond's numbers, specifically points per game, dropping closer to 10 now with the effort going towards getting more threes?
I don't know. That's really interesting to think about.
And I guess the use of Blake Griffin more in the offense, where we might see Point Blake unlocked a lot more.
Well, I think if you see Point Blake, then you can do some really interesting things where you can run like pick and rolls with he and Andre, because Blake is a really good passer.
Yeah, he's very underrated as a passer in the league. And
I agree.
don't think that people underestimate him for that.
I don't think Andre's points per game should go down. I mean, I know he's going to start shooting like 2 or 3 threes a game, and he probably won't make a lot, but if he can start to make a lot, make 30% at least, then he gets more interesting. But I think you need to really feature him because he has grown and he works as hard as anybody. And I mean, we're talking about one of the best rebounders the league's ever seen, and especially in
those
recent
numbers
history.
won't go down.
He's going to continue.
That's gonna.
In these preseason games, he continues to just rebound at a ridiculous rate. And one thing I noticed about Blake Griffin, it looks like he's starting to get explosiveness back. I saw him try to dunk on somebody, which was encouraging.
He tried to dunk on Jared Allen.
It didn't work.
No, it didn't.
But he tried. Like last year, there weren't a lot of dunks from Blake Griffin, which is what he was known for his first few years. And now he's starting to change his game. But if you see some of that explosiveness back, there's going to be more things you can do with him. So you hope that that's still there.
And going back to Andre Drummond, just his three-point shooting in general, I think more or less, I don't think Casey wants him to really. I mean, I think Casey would love for him to be a 40% three-point shooter.
Of course.
But I think the main reason Andre needs to come out is because you see these teams playing. You spread out, and you have so much. The isolation plays, the isolation situations become easier because you have that big man that's guarding Drummond out on the perimeter.
That helps out guys like Reggie and
especially Stanley Johnson, who's going to have to, if his three-point shot in year 4 isn't any better than it has been the last 3 years, is going to have to rely.
Indication that
he's going to have to rely on getting to the bucket, getting into the paint, and
being a
pulling
slasher.
Yeah, and so that's why I think having him out there. That's why I don't know if we'll see a lot of Zaza in this offense. I don't even in Toronto, Pirtle was pulled out of the paint a little more often. He wasn't really asked to do anything much, but you didn't have him clogging up the middle very often.
It seems like he's just going to be an enforcer. Like he might be a guy that can come in and like rough up. If you're playing like Joel Embiid, he'll pick up a couple fouls. I don't know. Yeah. I don't see him being a big factor at all. I mean, he's a solid signing. He's won championships. Obviously, he was with Golden State, but like he's a guy that you know what you're getting from him, and you don't expect anything major. But with this team, I think I was looking at it, and I think that the East is a lot tougher than we think. I think there's like 6 teams that will probably make the playoffs. Like you have Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, Toronto. Who else am I missing?
Indiana,
and then you have Washington. Who's probably going to make the playoffs.
They're either going to make the playoffs or win 20
or they're
going to
be.
It's either one or the other.
I mean, the Dwight Howard effect is real. We've seen what he's done to teams, but it just seems like those are 6 teams that are good, and then you have these last 2 spots, who you're kind of fighting with the Pistons, the Heat, and probably the Hornets. I don't really see anyone else vying for those spots.
No, you would think it's probably a 3-team race for those last 3 spots or for the last 2 spots. If we do look at this, so you expect the Pistons to finish around the 7 or 8 seed.
Yeah, I think that they could get a 7 or 8 seed. I feel confident that they will actually. I feel like they're a better team than the Hornets, and I think that the Heat are good. They have one of the better coaches in the league, so I think that they'll always be right there, no matter what they have on their roster. I think that I do see them making the playoffs this year. Personally, I just feel like that's what they're heading towards.
Yeah, I definitely think they can make the playoffs this year. I think, at best, you're looking at a 5-seed team.
Yeah, if they play.
I think if they peak, they can get to a 5, maybe a 4 if they just because you're at 4, you're getting into the likes of Milwaukee and Indiana, and those are teams you have to play interdivision. So if they can, they can hang with those teams throughout the year. I think they could probably get. I think they could maybe get to a 4 or 5 seed.
They could absolutely be better than Washington.
They could definitely be better than Washington. But I think 6 or 7 is where you'll see the Pistons slotted if they make the playoffs. I think that's a good outlook to have as a team.
Yeah.
It's not great. I mean, it's a middle of the road playoff team. It's not something you should always be excited or ecstatic about.
No.
But when you're coming up the way the Pistons have, they've been struggling in years past. It'll just be nice to make it to the playoffs and get back there, especially first year under Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, you'll take a small win and you'll hope that Casey can continue to build this and build off of it. I mean, I don't know they don't have a lot of wiggle room in terms of roster and cap space. But hopefully they can use this and build on it going forward.
Yeah, and if we can take a look at the broader spectrum of the NBA, we'll take a look at MVP real quick. They just got the odds out, Vegas did, and LeBron was at the top with Giannis and AD right behind. Other guys listed. You had Kyrie on the list, pretty high up there.
Kawhi was up there.
Kawhi was up there. So who's the guy for you that's the MVP? Who's leading the MVP race for you before the season starts?
I know there's a lot of, obviously, the LeBron to LA. That's changed everything for everybody, and people really feel like he could win another MVP, and he absolutely could. But I think it's Anthony Davis. I know there's a lot of talk about Giannis too. I just think that Anthony Davis, right now he's the second best player in the league. Like if you just look at everything he does, he could very easily, like with a monster season, be considered the best. I know it's ridiculous to say that someone that could be better than LeBron, but if anyone can, I think it's him. I think he's the next guy, and I think we saw what he did in the playoffs and what he was able to do against Portland, and if he just continues playing like that, and if he's an MVP candidate and a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and he's like top 3 in both, I think it's just time for him, and it just seems like the timing is right this year for me. I feel like Giannis is still 1 year away.
My only issue with Anthony Davis is that he plays in the West. He plays in a really tough conference. While I might think, while you or I may be high on the Pelicans, there's a lot of people that think that they might not even make the playoffs this year.
Right.
So,
it is possible.
So the one thing that could be tough is, yes, he could put up these big numbers, but if he's an 8 seed or even just misses out on the playoffs, the voters might not want to give him that recognition just because of how bad the team success was. For my pick, I'm going to go with a guy that got moved this offseason, and you don't see MVPs getting moved the season after. But this is Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. I think Toronto has the potential to be the best team in the East. I think they could definitely get to 60 wins in the Eastern Conference. I think the way they're going to use Kawhi, I think Nick Nurse is going to be able to use him well on both ends of the court and not overdo it with him, mainly because if he's going to be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, he needs to be able to have that energy to give the effort on both sides of the floor. So I think Kawhi could give the Raptors that big of a leap that the voters will see that and could vote for him.
I will agree. I think since we haven't seen him in so long that we've kind of forgot how good Kawhi Leonard is at basketball.
Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, we forget that 2 years ago he was top 5 in MVP voting. The Spurs were an injury away from Kawhi of maybe knocking off the Golden State Warriors.
Possibly, yeah.
So Kawhi, yes, he hasn't played, so that's a main reason why I think people are really underlooking him, and I think he could do some big things in Toronto.
Yeah, he probably. I agree. I would agree.
So that'll do it for us here on the Jen and Gelo show. Stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see you in the near future. Until then, I'm Noah Genson.
I'm D'Angelo Starks. Peace.